What's up everyone, Alex here. Before we talk about REYNATIS, we'll need to talk about its Japanese publisher/developer, FuRyu. And I think the best way to get to know them quickly is to look at the games that they've released. Crystar, Cry Machina, Caligula Effect 1 and 2, Monarch, Alliance Alive, Legend of Legacy, and Lost Dimension, to name a handful. Just seeing this highlight reel gives you a sense that FuRyu does this all for the love of JRPGs. But what you also see in this reel is that oftentimes, FuRyu bites off more than it can chew, meaning that its ambitions are so grand that, too often, the execution never quite measures up to that. So this begs the question, is REYNATIS one of those games that manages to measure up to its hype grandiosity? REYNATIS is an action RPG set in modern Shibuya, developed by both FuRyu and Natsume Atari, the latter of which is known for games in the Tengo project, such as Shadow of the Ninja, as well as being the developer of the upcoming Shadow Heart's spiritual successor, Penny Blood Hellbound. The footage that you're seeing right now is from the PS5 version of the game, and I'd like to thank NIS America for providing this game code. REYNATIS is played through the perspective of two individuals, both on the opposite sides of a war, forcing wizards to conceal their magical powers, else they face oppression. The game also features a collaboration with Neo, The World Ends With You, and its story is written by Kazushige Nojima, responsible for the stories of the Final Fantasy VII Remake series, as well as Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasies 7, 8, and 10, with a soundtrack composed by the legendary Yoko Shimomura, who's best known for her work on Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy XV, and Radiant Historia. As mentioned earlier, FuRyu's games are filled to the brim with cool ideas that will make any JRPG fans turn heads. And with names like Yoko Shimomura, Kazushige Nojima, as well as the cameos from Neo, The World Ends With You characters, you might even be more enticed than normal. That being said, anyone who's played the recently released demo can tell you that while the action showcased in its fancy trailers depict a beautiful and gorgeous action game, the moments in between its battles tell a different story. The beginning of REYNATIS is slow, even slower than typical JRPG standards, which spends a good chunk of time establishing the game's primary protagonists, Marin and Sari, as well as their relationship with the Magic Enforcement Administration, or MEA for short, and the mysterious organization known as the Guild. The story is told through Marin or Sari's perspective, which initially seems like a good hook. The trouble with all of this build-up is that the ensuing narrative is a bit standard fare, often drawing out scenes of little importance and unnecessarily prolonging your return to the gameplay. And for action games in general, being succinct in your storytelling, as opposed to languishing in unimportant details, becomes extremely important. In addition to the main narrative, REYNATIS also has a bunch of side quests that you can do to help level up your party. And I say party loosely because you're really only seeing one character on screen at a time, though REYNATIS allows you to switch to each character at any given moment. Still, everyone gets experience regardless of participation. Completing these side quests are easy enough, and should be familiar to anyone who's done these kinds of things elsewhere. What complicates matters, especially if you're playing Marin, is that REYNATIS has this Grand Theft Auto-esque crime system that ticks down if you're seen using magic while in public. As I mentioned, magic is outlawed in these streets, so it's natural for people to freak out. Hilariously, this is measured by social media shares, so the more people tweet or snap you on social media, the faster the MEA will be notified. And when they're out to get you, they'll unleash some of their most powerful forces to do so. Fortunately, there are designated safe spaces where you can just loiter around and eventually not get seen, though these locations feel a bit arbitrary. It feels similar to when you're playing tag when you were young and a random tree or wall become the designated safe spot. It also doesn't take too much time to see that REYNATIS' presentation, that is to say its character models, environments, and art design, all feel a bit too shiny, neon, and outdated, especially for a game running on the PS5. And by art design, I'm not saying that everything needs to be ultra-realistic. Rather, the game needs to look great by utilizing the skills of its development team in the best ways possible. And I feel that this is one of REYNATIS' parts that could have used a lot of care. There's a cutscene at the beginning of the game where a commander is issuing orders to different squads, and your eyes are instantly drawn to how primitive his mouth movements are. This becomes especially apparent when the camera decides to zoom in on him, and you notice that his body barely moves, making his mouth movements look even more robotic. To be fair, not every cutscene needs that kind of attention, and in those scenes, REYNATIS actually presents them well enough. But then you get to this one high-quality cutscene at the beginning, which then cuts to an in-game cutscene, and you're quickly reminded of how its makers want to make the coolest action RPG on the block, but not realizing that you need to make smart choices that showcases your game in the best possible light. And in case this detail was missed, FuRyu makes these JRPGs with a low budget, which underscores the importance of good design choices. This is a bit of a shame, because the game has a fantastic soundtrack by Yoko Shimomura, with compositions that carry her distinct signature sound. The compositions feel suitably epic, something of a cross between the work she's done on Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy XV. And when you finally get a taste of its action combat, you see glimpses of great ideas here too, though you might find it a little strange at first. REYNATIS' combat has you switching between two different stances, and every character has them. Liberation is your offensive mode, where you get to beat up your enemies with magical abilities and your standard melee attack. But because you're a wizard, you can't keep attacking forever, as your MP meter will start to dwindle down and get spent the more you use powerful magic spells. When it's emptied, this automatically throws you in suppression mode, which is your defensive mode. It's only in suppression that you're able to dodge attacks, which makes for an interesting design choice. Your MP meter will slowly build up while in this mode, though performing REYNATIS' version of perfect dodges can build this up even faster. I say this because REYNATIS' perfect dodges don't just ask you to press a button before an attack lands. Instead, time slows down whenever an attack is about to hit you. And when this attack is a melee attack, you can hold the dodge button down, which fills up a dodge meter, and upon filling it up, unleash it, so you can absorb a ton of MP. If you do this when your MP meter is almost full, this meter will glow and you can trigger a powerful mode called Burst Liberation, which slows down time upon activation, giving you an offensive advantage. Keep in mind that REYNATIS will not slow down time for perfect dodging if you're fighting a powerful enemy. If you take a step back, it might sound weird as to why both offense and defense are split in two different stances, but I see this gameplay design as FuRyu's way of making this style of action JRPG more approachable for others. That being said, it's not an easy transition, especially for many of us used to perfect dodges that are more straightforward, or whose gameplay styles mix both offense and defense fluidly. Unfortunately, there are moments during combat where the camera just gets caught in weird angles. This is especially apparent in tight corners, of which there are plenty. This is the kind of problem that many other developers have solved this far into the history of game development, so having to deal with it in this game once again is a bit frustrating. There's also strange gameplay choices, like penalizing you for talking to NPCs by increasing your stress levels, as well as introducing crafting at about a third of the game. Despite some really strange gameplay choices, I found some novelty to REYNATIS' take on action combat, especially with the liberation and suppression mode implementations. But when I take a step back and look at everything, it's hard to justify telling people that it's well worth the asking price. You can make the argument that with a really good director, FuRyu can make a game that can truly be their coming out party of sorts, one that pushes them into the limelight. But until then, REYNATIS is an entertaining action game whose presentation and storytelling probably won't impress. But what's so great about playing FuRyu games is that you can see glimpses of greatness in its imperfections. And all I can really express sincerely is to applaud the sheer tenacity and bravery of releasing games so often as they do. With all that said, I want to hear what you think. Have you tried the demo? Post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. Also, I did a rant on how the power of gaming hardware doesn't really matter, and a lot of you have strong opinions about it. I also released a demo preview of a game called Bloomtown, which I can only describe as Earthbound meets Persona, which is coming out very, very soon. You can find them all right here, so go check them out. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.